not a cat. I am Jillian Hayes, and we are going to load everyone in. I couldn't find the actual cat filter, so you get this one. Don't worry, we'll turn it off in a moment, but we got to cheer you up a little bit on a Friday afternoon. And the cat mouth does not work while you're drinking coffee. All right, welcome everyone. We are still loading folks in. I'm going to get you back my normal face. Proof that I am not actually a cat. All right. Just a reminder to everyone, if you have not been to one of our town halls before, please feel free to go ahead and type questions into the Q&A box as we are talking, and we'll just wait a couple minutes as people load in from the outside here, and then we will get started. So welcome everyone, and welcome to those of us watching on the live stream as well. All right, it looks like the loading has paused for a moment. So good afternoon, everyone. Jillian Hayes from Grad Division. So happy to host our monthly town hall with all of you today. We thought that we would be in a place, and it looks like we are increasingly in a place where there would start to be some good news, looking like we might be headed towards some sense of normalcy. And you've probably, hopefully, seen over the last couple of weeks, we've been announcing a variety of programs to help regain some sense of normalcy and get everything back on track. So our goal today is really to have all these great panelists tell you about what things you can kind of expect coming up spring and summer and even into the fall to some degree, to get back our lives here at UCI and stop living in these COVID bubbles that we have been in so far. Before I introduce our panel, I do want to acknowledge we got a couple questions beforehand that are really largely sort of public health focused questions, and we don't have that expertise here on the panel today. Doesn't mean you can't ask. You can always ask any questions you want and use the Q&A, but we don't really have those experts here. I will tell you that the public health context changes every day, and that every meeting that I have been in, grad students are very much on people's minds with regard to things like vaccination schedules, recognition that graduate students are central to both our research and teaching missions, getting everyone back on track and in place. We do not have authority here in Orange County at this time to distribute vaccine to anyone who is under the age of 65. So that's probably the top line headline for anyone who has questions about vaccines and public health and so on. Everything else we are working through. So hopefully that will at least get one of those big questions handled and out of the way. We will work through, please keep putting questions in. We'll work through those as we can after we do some introductions. But as I say, today's primary topic is really thinking about the various recovery programs that we're starting to put in place and how we hope that those can help you, how you can get more information about them, and what life might look like spring into the fall of this 2021. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Jamie Smith, who will talk to you in a little bit more detail about some of our fellowship programs that are upcoming.
Hi. So we have tried with the grants and fellowships for the summer to really reach out to as many students as possible and to help with aid, while also including students who may not normally qualify for a number of grants and fellowships. So just to kind of quickly run through some, we have a Cascade mentoring program that is going to be run by Barbara Sarnecka in social sciences that is about creating work groups to help with both graduate skills in your career and as well as with writing accountability. We have Indigenous Studies grants, LGBTQ grants, and some for international students as well as for caretaker and parents. We know that both of those are huge populations right now, all struggling with fees and work and kids at home and taking care of parents and all of the above. So we wanted to make sure that we're providing as much aid to you as possible. I don't think we have anyone here to talk about the DTEI fellowships will also be provided. Oh, there you are, Danny. I'll let you talk about this. It's Friday. But you can reach out to me. I'll put my email into the chat, and you can reach out to me with any questions around any of these grants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. And with that, why don't we hand over to Danny actually to talk a little bit about many of the programs that OVPTL's office takes care of to support our grad students and postdocs, but probably people are particularly interested in DTI fellows, so we'll do both.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Danny Mann. I'm the Director for Grad and Postdoc Instructional Development over at DTEI. And like Vice Provost Hayes said, we have a lot of great programs for grads and postdocs regularly, and also some special ones this summer. So just to introduce myself a little bit more fully, I oversee the TA training every year, the TAPDAP, the campus-wide TAPDAP program, also the Pedagogical Fellows Program, our Certificate in Teaching Excellence, and just in case anyone has questions about those. But I think the focus for today is summer support. And as Jamie mentioned, we're running the DTI Grad Fellows Program again. We're really excited to have this opportunity again. We ran it for the first time last year. And the focus of that program was to help faculty transition to remote and online teaching. And so we were able to fund a good amount of graduate students across campus. And this year we're running that again. It's going to be at a little bit of a smaller scale, but we have funding to support still campus-wide. And it's a $5,000 fellowship. Like many of these other fellowships, the deadline is February 26th. And for graduate students who participated last year, they're eligible to apply again this year. And I'm happy to answer more questions. The focus this year, instead of transitioning to online, it's going to be more thinking about how graduate students can help faculty leverage all the online materials they developed into a more hybrid space that we're moving into next year. So thinking about going back into person and balancing the online and in person. And also, so that's one focus. The second focus is emphasizing inclusive pedagogy even more than before. We had a little bit last year, but we want to make sure that our classes are as inclusive as possible. So those are the two main focal points, and I'm happy to answer more questions as they come. Thanks.
And as a reminder, please drop questions into the Q&A as people are talking. Danny, do you want to do any quick advertising for some of your other programs that you have launching as well? We don't want you to think we only care about you in the summer.
Thank you. I feel the care. Yeah, well, we have a lot of ongoing programs, and I strongly encourage you all to either your graduate students or yourselves to look at our University Studies 390X course. This is a pedagogy course we run every quarter. If anyone takes that course, they'll earn multiple certificates. We have a course design certificate program, which happens over summer. Our pedagogical fellows, of course, which that recruitment happens in fall. And we're also running a relatively new program, also the second year, called Summer Teaching Apprenticeship Program, or STAP. And that one is a little complicated because we work with the departments, but if anyone has questions, the way that program works is for graduate students teaching over summer, we give them really structured mentorship so that they get training from both DTEI and a faculty mentor. They walk away with a summer teaching apprenticeship certificate, and faculty get a small stipend for doing this, and it ends up really strengthening any summer teaching experience. So we're excited about that one too. If any of these things interest you, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn it over now to Matt Hansen, who, like Danny, has lots of great opportunities to support our grad students and our postdocs, but also is launching a new program this summer that we're really excited about.
Yeah, thank you, Jillian. I'm Matthew Hansen. I'm the Director of New Ventures at Beal Applied Innovation. We're a business unit of UCI. Our director, Richard Sudek, reports to the provost. So in that regard, we're kind of like a school, but we teach no classes, have no faculty, and grant no degrees. What we do is we try to increase the culture of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship across the campus and community, and that includes you. So I'm told that magically in the chat box will appear a slide that you can download that has all the programs we have available specifically that are open to you as grad students, postdocs, and PhDs. And just in a real quick summary, that includes part-time paid internships with our research translation group. That's the group that helps marshal university inventions through the patent and licensing process. We also have a student startup fund, which can give you up to $1,000 of free money to go ahead and start your business idea, maybe develop a prototype, attend a conference, something like that. What Jillian mentioned, though, is something we're very excited about and are very thankful to her for her support on this, is the Graduate Student Innovation Fellows. Now, you might have heard over the last year or so, we launched something called the Faculty Innovation Fellows. This is a parallel to that, but it's for grad students, PhDs, postdocs. What we're looking for here are people who can apply. They can get a $5,000 stipend starting this summer. And what will happen is they'll come and join us in our several groups and help us enhance our programs specifically and make them more accessible, more available, more attuned to grad students. So we look forward to your applications for that. We also run with the National Science Foundation something called I-Corps, which is professional training and $2,000 for you to go out and get what's called the voice of the customer. So if you have a product or service idea, you can go out and poll the people that you want to sell to and get some feedback on how to improve that. If you do decide eventually to start a company, which by the way is a great pathway for many of you, where you can be your own boss, build your own company, we have an incubator where right now we have about 60 teams we're incubating across all disciplines. And these are companies founded by UCI students, faculty, staff, and alumni. Once you have a company, we can then put you in touch with our full-time person who helps you apply for small business innovative research grants. And these are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. We won't write it for you, but we will review, comment, we'll keep you on track, we'll answer any questions. The person we have here is an expert on these, and we've been very successful in helping faculty and others secure these once they have companies. Lastly, we also have co-funded with the federal government a small business development center, which you can apply to if you're a more mature company and then get access to more free counseling, templates, introductions to government programs, small business loans, etc. So from idea all the way through launching a company, we're here to, again, raise that level of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So refer to the handout when you can get that. Follow up with me. Be happy to chat and answer any questions. And I'm wishing you all the best of success, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I'll just give an additional little plug here that I had the opportunity to have my own dissertation research commercialized through an SBIR grant many, many years ago. And it is a really cool program. And if you have any interest in entrepreneurship or even just getting your work out there because you're excited about it, I definitely encourage you to get involved in those programs. Let me hand it over to Selena Mojica, who many of you probably know because you email with her quite a bit, who's going to tell you generally sort of some of the changes that we're making in Grad Division and how we're looking to support our students and postdocs through this tough time.
Yeah, so I'm the Director of Academic Initiatives, and I oversee our retention programs and our outreach programs, as well as our enrolled services. So a lot of the changes that we made were in response to the pandemic. So putting our forms online, so that way students and staff and faculty from across the campus have access and can submit documents online. That is here to stay. I think it's probably a better use of students' time not to have to come in and drop off paperwork, but to have access to it and complete it online. What we are exploring is, as of now, we are going to be remote until June, but what does it look like after after June 30th. So what kind of services will we offer in person versus those that will be held virtually? It seems like there is some advantage to having some virtual services, especially some of our professional development. I also oversee the diverse educational community and doctoral education program. And we do a lot of stuff online, and it's more convenient for students, especially those that are busy. It's hard to track between courses and research from one part of the campus to another. So what I'm hoping is that we'll have some virtual events and programming as well as in person at some point. So to support students who would like to meet in person, and also those who like the convenience of being able to meet virtually. And in addition, FONG services. So as many of you are probably aware, FONG is our wonderful academic counselor who really serves, all of our graduate students well and tries to be there as a support service for students that are experiencing any academic difficulties. And so again, exploring how we can make sure that his services are accessible as we move to being in person. So probably having a mix of online appointments as well as in-person appointments. So I guess we've implemented plenty of things to make sure that our services continue online during the pandemic, but we're actively exploring how to make sure we can still make our services convenient when we move in person.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, you hopefully by now know, and if you don't already, we really are planning to be fully in person in the fall. That is what all of our sort of public health guidance and planning looks like. Now, of course, things can change. If there's one thing we've learned in the last year, it's that things can change. But we wanted to have Tim Trevin, Director of Housing, and Laura Dorfman, who runs one of our housing units on campus for grad and family housing, come and be available to answer questions about what that actually looks like. So it's one thing for me to tell you that we're going to have a residential experience. It's a very different thing to know how that plays out in real life. And I know that many of you have questions about what spring and summer, but also even fall might look like. So with that, I will hand it over to the two of them.
Great, thanks, Dean Hayes. So again, my name is Tim Trevin. I'm Executive Director for Student Housing. Laura Dorfman is part of our housing team here today, and she's the Director of Verano Place Housing, one of our one of our four graduate communities. We also have graduates in our ACC Apartments, which is a public-private partnership housing community. I'm going to toss it actually to Laura first to talk about, once we get back to more normalized operations, what will the housing experience programs and services be like? So Laura, take it away.
Hello and good afternoon, and I guess happy early long weekend for those of you that are able to relax a little bit on Monday. Well, first, thank you for being here, and I hope you choose to apply to live in graduate and family housing. I just wanted to put that out there. I think it's a tremendous experience, and even though we've been kind of mucking through changes in day-to-day with the pandemic, we have tried very much to create a residential experience through virtual programming, family programming, pick up and do it in your apartment programming, and so we really want to rebuild and bring back some of that in-person and engagement that's misses a little bit with Zoom. And so some of those things are, of course, all of this caveat is as permissible by the state, as guidance that the university provides, but we want to return to events, right? Engagement, so that you're able to connect with each other. And it might be limited, it might start out small, but we have a lot of outdoor space and very little weather to contend with. And so we think we'd be able to bring back some of those programming events for families, things to develop communities, and also to meet those learning outcomes. We're working on our residential curriculum, and our learning outcome areas are wellness, personal responsibility, and social responsibility, as well as our engagement events, just to get you out and getting to know your neighbor and learning some new things. And so we do want to return to on-campus in-person programs. We want to bring back some of our reservable spaces, our computer labs, those things that help give you a break from your apartment, but also allow you to be more successful in your studies. We'd like to return to outdoor amenities, bringing back those things. We have grills and basketball courts and those types of things. So you can get out there and get some of that energy out and engage and utilize this beautiful community we live in. There will remain some virtual options. We realize people will be ready to go at different phases. And so we'll keep some of those programs. Also, we do have, and I won't go very much into it, but a Zop Bubble program, which allows students to bubble up in groups and gather. And right now the gathering is, we're working to get to the point where we can have indoor and outdoor gatherings and allow small groups to be able to be distanced and enjoy each other's company. Again, like really to help with the engagement piece. And then lastly, we will continue to provide services, whether our staff are remote or our staff are in person. We always have someone on duty. We have dedicated staff for programming and community building. And so we're looking forward to seeing you in the fall.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Let me also piggyback on a couple of things. First of all, Laura talked about our Make and Take programs. This has been a response to the fact that we can't get together. There's an awesome tight community in all four graduate communities. People really engage in really fun and creative ways, but we haven't been able to do that during COVID. So we've been compromising with these Make and Take programs. And there's actually one coming up right now called our Chinese New Year Make and Take celebration. So little boxes and kits that the grad communities have put together for residents to come and pick up and have their own little celebration. So those are just some of the kinds of things that we've done to try to accommodate the times we're in. One of the questions that we are getting already for 21-22 is, what if the campus goes back to all remote instruction? We are planning for in-person instruction. We're assuming that we will be, as Dr. Hayes said, that we will be in person. But what if there is another wrinkle in the pandemic and we have to go back to remote? The question has been, what will happen if I've already signed my lease? And the answer to that is that there are so many variables and so many unknowns that I can't give you a solid answer, but I can point to our history, which is last year when we went fully remote. We did permit all of our grad students and undergrads to cancel their contracts and cancel their leases in order to give them the flexibility that if they didn't want to be on campus, they didn't have to be. As I said, for this coming year, there are so many factors that are still undetermined that I can't say exactly how, but we will do everything we can to minimize impact on students if we have to make a quick right turn. So I will pause there and toss it back to Jillian.
Thank you so much, Tim and Laura. So really appreciate all the adaptations everyone described today and all of the extra services. So let me just remind everyone, please drop your questions into the Q&A. This is where you get my little speech from you that I also give when I teach classes, which is, if you have a question, chances are good someone else does too. So do them the favor and be the person to write that question into the Q&A. We did get some ahead of time, so I will fill a little bit of our air here with some of those while you all think about and type into the chat with your own direct questions. If you are watching us on the Facebook live stream, you won't be able to obviously type in your questions, so please switch over to Zoom and we'll get you on those questions, and otherwise we'll look for the ones that the Zoom attendees are typing in, so thank you for those. So some big questions that people have been asking with regard to some of these programs. So one is with regard to our continuing fellowships that Jamie was talking about a little bit. You'll notice if you look at those, there are some restrictions. So these are really targeted at, for example, the non-resident tuition is targeted at those of you who might be what we call Doc 2A, which if you don't know what that means, it's basically 3 years post-advancement. And that is because we expect a combination of the schools and our existing central fellowship programs to cover the NRST prior to that point. So we're really talking about the Doc 2A folks there. And then the continuing fellowships are really focused on people who are out of their guaranteed funding. Now, you might be in your second or third year and going, but my research was disrupted for an entire year. I'm going to need this funding. You may well need that funding eventually, but we are taking it on a budgetary year cycle. So this funding is explicitly allocated for this upcoming budgetary year, which means people who do not have funding in the 21-22 cycle. So that's why it's focused there. It doesn't mean that there won't be fellowships in the future. It just means we're not there yet. So if you're still within your funding guarantee, try not to stress about it, but you're not eligible for those particular fellowships yet. The other question regarding that is people have said, well, I'm outside my funding guarantee. I think I might get a TA position or I might get some departmental funding, but I just don't know. That's okay. You can still apply. It's really, if you're out of the guaranteed funding, we are looking because we know that everyone's scrambling sort of all over campus and so on and so forth. So please do apply. If you have friends who don't read my weekly emails, I know that you get a lot of emails from me, so you may well decide that you want to spam filter them. That's okay. I don't judge you. But if you have friends who you know spam filter me, make sure they know about these fellowship programs, because we really do want to make sure that those people who need the support are going to get it. And in that regard, we've made it a fairly simple application process. So please don't, what my husband refers to as PhD it up. Don't feel like you need to overdo it. It is simple intentionally, and we don't want you writing, pages upon pages to convince us of your worth. We know you are worthy. You are here. So we are really just looking for very, very simple things. We've tried to use check boxes where we can, things like that. Please don't sort of feel like you have to spend as much time as you lost from the pandemic asking for money to support your losses during the pandemic. So I just want to add that. It looks like Jamie's gone off mute, so I'm guessing she's got something to add to those comments.
I just want to say that we also tried to make it very easy by making one deadline for everything. So February 26th is the deadline for all of these that we're talking about. Just keep writing that down and reminding your colleagues, within the application process and making it streamlined. We also did that with deadlines, and feel free to reach out to any of us with additional questions about it.
Absolutely. And you can apply for multiple. Sorry, that was another question that we have gotten. The part of the reason to have a single deadline is so we can look across all of them and make sure that if we have one program that's super oversubscribed, but someone's applied to a different one, then maybe we sort of jigger things around a little bit in those ways to make sure that we're spreading out the funding as much as possible. Unfortunately, we can't sort of put a guaranteed floor under everyone as we did last summer. We simply just don't have the funding with the state cuts and other kinds of things to mobilize in that way. But we are going to do the best that we can to support as many students as we can. So please do apply for everything that you think you might be interested in or qualified for, all of those things, and so on. So do you all really not have any questions? I'm sort of shocked by this because I don't know that we've ever had anything. Oh wait, Danny's raising his hand. I didn't even know we had that enabled. This is exciting. Maybe panelists can raise their hand. So let's turn it over to Danny, and I will again encourage you in the audience, put in your questions, ask us anything for reals. Go ahead, Danny.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I could just share a little bit more information. I realized that not everyone might be familiar with DTEI and my office. And I just want to clarify that really anything teaching related for a grad student or postdoc, DTI is a good resource to support people in their efforts. So if you're currently TAing or teaching and you want to learn better strategies or just talk with someone about what's going on, we have experts who will meet with you one-on-one, any current teaching, but also your future teaching goals. So many people want to pursue teaching focused careers, but they might not know what those places are really looking for. And we can offer that kind of guidance and mentorship one-on-one. And another thing that I'm really proud of about our office that I think is particularly useful at this time is that the programs I mentioned earlier, like pedagogical fellows and even our TA training, we really emphasize the building of community, and many people have found a beautiful, supportive, interdisciplinary community within our DTI programs. So if anyone is seeking colleagues, connections, and more community in this time of sort of isolation, especially those of you who are more focused on teaching, you can find that with DTEI. So please explore our website, dti.uci.edu, and look at all of our programs, in addition to, of course, to grad fellows, where we should have a strong community as well. Last year was great, and we look forward to building on that.
Thank you, Danny. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And actually, I should point out that that's perhaps the theme of all of these panelists that I had not recognized until this moment, that it really is about community. So whether we're talking about the Decade program and the other initiatives Selena's office runs, the wonderful community of entrepreneurs that Matt and his team have been building over in Applied Innovation, all of the community building that Laura and Tim have been talking about, and then of course, Jamie's efforts, not just in our fellowships, but also in a variety of mentoring programs and other things that we are really starting to develop in Grad Division. You know, it really is about community. And actually, that's one of our big themes for accreditation, which is coming up. I know that most students and postdocs don't spend your time thinking about accreditation with the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, but I spend a lot of time thinking about it, and so does Selena these days. And community is really a thing. So not only should you get involved in all of the different programs that we've been talking about today, but actually, and you can write this in the Q&A as well, many of our communities have been so impressed over the last several months with the way in which students are developing your own communities. And whether that's in response to COVID or in response to anti-racism and the structural challenges that we've seen there, or other kinds of events of the last year, there have just been so many wonderful student-led initiatives building community on our campus. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate all of you in that regard, but feel free to advertise those things in the Q&A, and we'll speak them out to people so that they get them on the Facebook stream as well as other places. So I'm going to ask again from the crowd, any additional questions, any thoughts about what we're doing in terms of fellowships, or how you might be able to be successful in those, any job market, entrepreneurship, teaching questions. We encourage them all. You've got a great crew of people here ready to answer them. Oh, here we go. Miriam Raka is asking if there is a link where all the fellowships are available so that we can take a look in on them all. Derek, our Director of Communications, did put that in the chat, I think just a moment ago, but depending on what's going on your screen, it may have disappeared. So if Derek, if you don't mind putting that chat in response to Miriam's question, you can just do the type answer in the Q&A and we'll have it there as well, so that if you're not able to see the chat, you can get it from the Q&A. For those of you watching in the stream, I'm going to commit now that we will put it on the Facebook page as well. So you will also have that link there, and hopefully that will happen. Notably, people have asked, and maybe I'll punt over to Selena to answer this. Our normal continuing fellowships that we normally have will happen again this year as well. And I don't want you to think that those are not happening simply because we're doing these other sort of dumpster fire of 2020 fellowships, for lack of a better phrase. But Selena, do you want to just mention those really quickly so people know those are upcoming as well?
Yeah, so we have the President's Dissertation Year Fellowship. So that is for students that will be finishing next academic year. And so it's a year-long fellowship for those ready to complete. We also have the Faculty Mentor Program. So that is a pre-advancement program fellowship, again, a year-long fellowship. So to help students get ready for advancement and advance to candidacy. And then we also have the Dean's Dissertation Year Awards. So those are just quarterly fellowships. It's actually a summer completion fellowship. So those are $5,000 fellowships for the summer. And so we have many more of those compared to the FMP and PDY, just because the amounts are much larger for those bigger fellowships. But they're all designed to help you to either finish or move through that next milestone. And so we usually announce those in March, with applications going live in April and applications being due about a month after they've been announced. And so we notify awardees probably at the end of May, whether or not they receive these awards. So yes, so we do have some continuing fellowships for you to apply for. And there's also some other small fellowships that are listed on our grad division fellowship website. So just some other small amounts. We have the Phi Beta Kappa, which is an international one, and a few other ones that are have some specific eligibility, but are there for continuing students. And
Thank
then-
you so much, Selena. We also have another question in the Q&A that is also going to be headed towards you. I will just read that out so everyone knows, and we'll have Selena answer that. There's questions about competitive edge, and this is a recruiting tool as well as something to help jumpstart our students in the summer. And Selena and her team have been working very hard on that. And I'm just going to ask you while you're talking, since it's sort of related to competitive edge, if you don't mind also talking about our summer research program, and maybe Danny wants to talk about those summer research programs that come out of DUE if he feels comfortable, as well as orientation, all of which probably look a little bit different than you might be expecting. So it's a good moment with regard to the competitive edge question as well.
Yeah, so last year we had our first virtual competitive edge. We plan to be virtual this year. It'll be similar to last year in that it was a 6-week program, which started at the beginning of August and went about mid-September. So just right before the quarter starts, the fall quarter begins. So we are going to encourage, of course, our incoming graduate students to participate in research, but we understand that given the pandemic, maybe research opportunities might not be as prevalent for the incoming students, but either way, we're still holding the programming, which will help those students prepare for graduate school at UCI and provide them with some resources to hopefully have a successful start. Which means for those that are students that are interested in mentoring or have taken the Mentoring Excellence Program, we will be looking for mentors, peer mentors for our incoming competitive edge students. So be on the lookout. We'll have a call that will go out for all of our summer programs. So that includes the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship Program. So we do send out a call for mentors for that program, as well as peer mentors for competitive edge. So those are opportunities. They're not huge funding opportunities, but some money to mentor students who are visiting from other campuses or who are going to be your fellow colleagues in maybe your school or program. So it's a good opportunity to get to know new students that will be coming into your program. And then there was another question. I'm sorry, I think I missed the second part of that.
Orientation was the other.
Orientation. Yes, and then
Sorry,
for
I threw
those,
a lot at you at once.
Yeah.
Good, but it's also Friday afternoon, so.
yes, and so if there are any students that are in their first year, of course, you have access to all of the orientation materials that are online through Canvas. So please, make use of those resources that are there. They're there forever for you to access while your time here at UCI. Unfortunately, I'm sorry for those that came prior to that. You do not have access to that, but you did participate hopefully in our in-person events in prior years. We anticipate that we'll have a similar program this year. So using Canvas to deliver the resources and information we think that graduate students need to know in order to be successful. We're hoping to possibly incorporate some graduate students maybe to help maybe hold some satellite events to so that students can get to know current graduate students. So I know our Grad Interconnect program, those mentors want to be involved in getting to know the students that are the international students that are coming to our campus next year. They also want to be involved in our orientation and helping them learn about the resources that are available to them and also answer questions. So again, another great opportunity for students to get involved and welcome the new class of graduate students to UCI.
Great, thank you so much. Danny, do you want to talk anything about how your all summer programs are going, or am I putting you on the spot too much? I did not forewarn you that you might have to do that.
Yeah, I actually don't have that information. But talking about orientations, I do run the TA training, like I was saying, and we're still figuring out the format of that, but we'll be in touch with the departments early on and come up with a plan that works well for everyone. Yeah, that's all. Selena had so much good information. I think most of it's there.
Fantastic. I think it suffices to say, I do believe that summer undergrad research programs are happening. And if you are interested as a grad student or postdoc in advising some of those folks, something will happen and information will come out soon. And that's something that will happen will likely be mostly remote with some specific exceptions for in-person and things like that. I wanted to draw folks' attention to a comment that Jamie put in the chat, particularly those of you who are watching this after the fact or on the Facebook live stream that you wouldn't have access to that chat regarding her office hours this week. So let me push it over to Jamie.
Yes, I've decided to start theming my office hours because I'm lonely during them. So this week it is going to be parenting during COVID. So you can tell me any issues that you are facing that are unique to parenting at UCI. We can trade tips about it. I have a 6-year-old myself and it is very difficult this time. So we can trade tips on how to keep our sanity or to how to distract our children at this time. So that will be on Thursday from 12 to 1. And you can just use Jamie Smith as the meeting ID number.
And we will, of course,
other
send
themes.
that out in the weekly message that will come out in just a couple of hours. So you will see that. I myself am struggling with pandemic parenting and just signed up for a webinar on how to get siblings to get along better. So if I'm unfortunately not available during Jamie's office hours next week, but if any of you could come, I would be very grateful for any tips on how to get siblings to get along better. If you can tell, that's the challenge in our house at the moment. So please do share those as people need. Again, reminder, if there's any other questions, the few we've gotten have been really good and we've had lots of detailed responses to it, but you are light. I'm guessing that lots of people are off already celebrating the Lunar New Year, and I greatly support that choice if that's what you're doing. So with that, I'm gonna just call on our panelists to see if there's any last comments that they want to make with our last bit of time here, but of course, do feel free still to pop questions in. If we have time, we'll squeeze those in as well. So any last comments that anyone wants to make? I'll call on you one at a time. Looks like Matt's putting his hand up. Thank you, Matt, for me not having to be the mean person who calls on someone who doesn't want to be called on yet.
Sure, no problem. Just 2 comments. One of them sort of riffing off some of the comments of the other panelists. I used the 3 words intentionally about creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, because if you think about those as a funnel, we're not strictly about trying to get you to start a company. We will get more people starting companies if we also get more people who feel they have license to be innovative and creative. So our programs are designed to stimulate and motivate that. And as one of the faculty members said, that just that mindset of thinking like an entrepreneur and being free to be creative and innovative actually helps her in her research. And when you think about it, a researcher is an entrepreneur. They find a problem, they try different solutions, they fail, they build a team, they get money. It's all the same skills, just a different title put to them. So realize that the things that we offer you can help you in your academic life, your personal life, et cetera, in terms of that sort of funnel of thinking, of being creative, being innovative, and maybe becoming an entrepreneur. The other thing I want to make clear is that we are much by design, not by default, gearing all of our programs to be open to everyone intentionally. So we have an initiative within Beal Applied Innovation that tries to imbue everything we do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Matter of fact, we have some task forces that you might be interested in joining. We have a task force that's going to help at the Entrepreneur Center, which is primarily for undergrads. We have a task force focused on the incubator and bringing more campus and community resources there. But we have a task force specifically focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion to try to make sure that we're not just, again, saying we're open by default, hey, you can come in. But if you come into our programs and you go, these people don't look like me, they don't talk like me, they don't think like me, then we're missing the boat, right? So we're shaping all of our programs to be open and sensitive to that, because creativity is the domain of every human being on earth, and human beings are the only people or the only creatures who can create new things. So we want to tap into everybody's creativity. So I want to make that clear and welcome everybody to come and explore our programs.
Thank you so much for that, Matt. And I will absolutely agree with you 100%. As someone who has popped in and out of various kinds of ventures, the skills that you need to run a company are very similar to the skills you need to run a nonprofit, are very similar to the skills that you need to run a research lab, and so on and so forth. So I really encourage folks to get involved with the initiatives with DTEI, with Applied Innovation, with all of the different folks that have been talking about these. Because even if you think those skills aren't things that you need, you'd be surprised at how many times that knowing how to run a classroom helped me know how to run my board, and knowing how to run my board helps me in my house running my children. So these skills are absolutely transferable. Anyone else want to make some final comments for folks? Yeah, Laura, please go ahead.
I'm going to put this in the chat, but just two admin pieces. The housing application opens March 1st. So if you're part of the Graduate Guarantee Housing Program, that does open March 1st, excuse me, and the guarantee deadline date is May 1st. So please apply. And if you have questions, I'm going to put the email in the chat. It's you can reach out to our analyst who oversees the administration of the Graduate Guarantee, and we'll work to get your question answered.
And Laura, while you're talking about applications, we are also getting questions, and I apologize, I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm starting to hear from students that they maybe are running out of their guarantee soon and are wondering what the process is or what the likelihood is that they might be able to extend it by the summer or by a quarter or anything like that, and wondering if they should still email to the grad status email address that you just put in the chat, or what process you'd like them to follow.
For students who are reaching the end of their guarantee, they can start there, and we'll route them through the exception process. All of this is based on the pandemic space that becomes available. And so I think that's a good starting point. You can also reach out to me, and I can send you next steps information, because it kind of depends on what the student is looking for. If they're looking to take a quarter on filing fees, or, is it a leave of absence? Is it, so we'll have to take a look at each person as an individual, and we can get that exception process information out to them.
Thank you so much, Laura. So again, those of you that are in the Zoom, she has put grad status at housing.hsg.uci.edu and L. Dorfman at uci.edu, both into the chat. Very appreciated and very brave of you to put your personal email address in the chat, Laura. So we want to give you massive gratitude for that. Danny, you want to give some closing thoughts?
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I felt inspired by some of the discussion around transferable skills that you could gain in these different domains. And something that I like to tell people is that there's always something you can learn from an experience. And if you ever feel like something was a total waste of time, I challenge you to think harder about it and figure out what you could learn from that. And whenever you're building a skill, it does connect in some way to these other domains if you really do the thinking that's required to bridge that. And so I just want to reinforce that point. I think that's a really beautiful aspect of all of this kind of work and support that we're offering, is that it all can feed into a very productive, healthier, hopefully happier grad life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Danny. Selena and Jamie, I think you're the only ones who haven't gone yet, so I'll give you an opportunity if you want to add anything to close us out.
I can say that, my position as Associate Dean for Student Success is new within Grad Division, and I'm really here to look at strategic and long-term differences that we can make for the kind of the holistic well-being of the students and how we can help the students not just succeed, but really thrive. And so I have these office hours coming up, but please feel free to email me. I'll put my email into the chat window. Any concerns that you have, don't hesitate to reach out. And that is faculty, staff, students, anyone that's on here, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'll just say that, although I think the pandemic has been really hard, especially for you all as students, I think it's really taught us in the grad division how we can, better support students in different ways. And I think that's something that I've found has been just a great thing that has come out of it, considering all the other bad things that have come out of it. But how can we provide services many different ways to reach more students? And I'm excited to see that we can continue to do that even as we start to return to providing in-person services, that we'll still be able to reach the students that maybe couldn't come to events or participate in programming prior because they were just so busy and just couldn't run back and forth across campus. So that to me is something that I just look forward to continuing as we move into fall.
Absolutely. Thank you, Selena. That's such a great point. It's a good reminder as well for me that we have been really amazed at how many people have been coming to our virtual events. We were worried we wouldn't have attendance, and then it turns out that we get even more attendance in some cases when we have these folks who are able to come, remotely or watch something while you're letting your experiment run at the same time in your lab and all of those kinds of things. We do have an alumni speaker coming up this next Thursday, the 18th. So that's one of those kinds of virtual events. And I encourage you all to check that out on the Grad Division website. There's links to the events and we'll put it in the email blast this evening as well to make sure that you have that handy. So it's very hard to imagine a silver lining with a year that has seen so much pain and so much trauma for folks. But we are really trying to talk on campus about what a post-pandemic university looks like and how we can learn from the things that we've all gone through collectively this last year. So my immense thanks to all of the panelists for sharing their vision of what life is going to look like upcoming. As well as to all of you who've joined us through our multiple various options, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, all of our different streams. We thank you for your patience with the university. We thank you for your engagement and your connection to all of us, and look forward to seeing more of you in the future. So thanks everyone, and have a wonderful Lunar New Year, Valentine's Day, President's Day, and probably 6 other holidays that I'm missing. Enjoy it all, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone.